In the last video, we looked at Daniel chapter 1 verses 3 to verse 7. And welcome to everyone here. If it's the first time, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That will be helpful for the channel. Also, comment, because I actually read your comment and I will make time to answer as well. Now, let's go back to chapter 1 of Daniel, verses 3 to verse 7 for a quick recap. Last time we touched on the change of names. Now, we didn't go to see what the name actually means, but on this recap, we're going to look at what the name means, because a name actually is very important. And when you change your name, it means something. So we can look at on your screen that the word Daniel means God is my judge, but Belteshazzar means from the Akkadian Balatsu Yusu, protect his life, which is linked to Baal, the chief god. Hananiah means Yahweh has been gracious, but on the Babylonian name, which is very uncertain, it could mean from the moon god, which refers to nod to Aku. Mishael means who is what God is, but for Meshach, which is also uncertain, it could possibly be a mirror form to who is what Aku is. And Azariah, which is Yahweh has helped, Abednego means servant of Nabu, which means the spelling of Abednego looks like a deliberate softening of Abed Nabu. So that's what we are seeing when the name was changed. That actually means changing your identity, the God you used to serve, and things of that nature. Now, that was a quick recap from verse number 3 to verse number 7. Let's see what verse number 8 now says, because we are studying Daniel chapter 1. On your screen, verse number 8 begins, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself." So, we are seeing that Daniel is given a diet. After their names were changed, the first thing that the devil did is to change their diet, which is very interesting because remember, diet plays a key role in your salvation. If you don't believe me, you can go back to chapter 3 of Genesis, where diet was the test, and that's the test that our first parent failed at: food. So diet plays a key role, and as we know, if you can control someone's diet, you can control how much food that person will intake. And if we're looking at in our marketplaces and things like that, many of the food are really contaminated, which means what you put in sometimes can change your genes, change your way of thinking, change your blood type, not a blood type, but change your blood, mess up with your organs, all that kind of stuff, make you sick and even die. Because sometimes the food that you eat can cause rapid health degradation. Now, in chapter 1, Daniel said, I don't want to eat that food that you guys are going to give me to eat, which most likely tells me that food was not according to God's principle. Now, in the mind of the Jew, let's say for example, we don't know, maybe Daniel used to eat chicken, turkey, beef, goat, lamb, because they did sacrificial all the time. And so most likely the food that they were getting from Babylonia was pork, horse, crab, lobster, I don't know, anything that is unclean. But we can tell that Daniel had already made in his mind that he would not eat their food. What does that tell me? It tells me that yes, you may have taken captive into a different country, or it could have been there was a big earthquake that devastated your country. The economy is plunging, and there is no other way but then to leave your country, right? Because that also happens. Or a nation wants to steal your oil, your petroleum, your uranium, your gold, and because of that now there is a war that's happening and you are forced to leave your country. But deep down you still remember the food that you used to eat in your country. Same for Daniel. Even though he is in a different country, he is learning the language, he is learning the culture, the literature, and everything. Yet, when it comes to the food, he still regards the food that he used to eat as primary. What does that tell me now is most likely, not most likely, definitely the food was unclean. Now, I give an example as it could have been pork, it could have been horse, it could have been snake or any of that, or ox, eagle. It doesn't mean that those animals are unclean in and of itself. Pork is not unclean in and of itself because pork swine has a purpose. God didn't make any unclean animal. Now, the eating of the flesh is what God calls unclean. As a matter of fact, on your screen, you will see that in Leviticus chapter 11. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but looking at verse number 5, God is speaking, no, verse number 4, let's start with verse number 4. God is saying, nevertheless, these you shall not eat among those that chew the cud, or those that have cloven hooves, the camel, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves. It is unclean to you. The rock irex, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves. It is unclean to you. The hare, because it chews the cud, but does not have cloven hooves. It is unclean to you. The swine, though it divides the hoof, meaning it has cloven hooves, having cloven hooves, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. Why? Because if you look in verse number 2, God said, speak to the Israelites, these are the animals which you may eat among all the animals that are on the earth, among the animals, whatever divide the hoof, having cloven hooves, and chew the cud. So God gave them 3 conditions: hoof, cloven hooves, and chew the cud. Let's keep on reading. Right? Divides the hoof, having cloven hooves, and chew the cud. But now verse number 8, Bible says, their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch, they are unclean to you. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that the swine is unclean by itself, or the onyx, the herix, or the hare, and all those animals that chew the cud but doesn't have divided hoof. It doesn't mean they are unclean by themselves. It means the purpose of eating is unclean. When you take it out of the purpose and you make it turn into a food or a diet, that is unclean. And even then, they are carcasses, meaning even when they are dead, you should not touch them because they are unclean. So I hope that part is very, that part actually makes sense to many of you. Now, let's go back to chapter 1 of Daniel, verse number 9. Verse number 9 says, now God had brought Daniel into the favor and the goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would endanger my head before the king. Pause. So, Daniel didn't do anything to have favor in the chief of the eunuchs, right? No, nothing at all. But God worked in the heart of the chief of the eunuch to favor Daniel, of course, and his friends. Now, Daniel, before any of that happened, he already made a choice. That's why the book stopped. That's why it stopped. You have a choice. There are people who leave their country, they come here to the US because of circumstances, and they were like, wow, man, I'm gonna eat just like that because I don't have that option in my country. And they forget about the education or the food education that they received in their country. They forget what was keeping them healthy, and they start eating whatever is given here, and they wonder, how am I getting sick all the time? Why am I getting weight? Why am I getting chubby? There is a choice. Daniel made the choice before. I'm not gonna eat their food nor their drink, their wine, or any of those things. Why? Because Daniel knew that there was a principle from the Bible, at least from the Torah, which has to do with food. And God now, because of that, not because of Daniel's mentality, but God made it so that the eunuch would not get angry at Daniel, because you are a slave, you are a captive into a different country. How dare you mention what you can and what you will and will not eat? That could have been the end of Daniel and be killed, but God said, no. My servant here, I'm going to protect my servant. Then the eunuch's response makes it clear. In the eunuch's mind, if Daniel doesn't eat the food that the king has given, he will die, because Daniel and his friend will look like people that were not taken care of properly. And many people that I know, whenever they hear somebody say, well, you know what, actually I don't eat pizza, I don't eat meat, I don't eat McDonald's, I don't eat Burger King, I don't eat at fast food, I don't eat at restaurant. Me personally, I stay away from fast food, from restaurant. I prefer to cook my own food. Most people, when I tell them I don't eat certain things, their first question is, why are you punishing yourself? Or sometimes it's, well then what do you eat? Right? Because if you don't eat McDonald's and Burger Kings and Chick-fil-A and all those nasty food, then what do you eat? Because apparently in their mind, there is no other food than those that are outside. And so, in the eunuch's mindset is, if you don't eat those food that we give you, you will look more feeble than the other guys in your age. At least that's what he thought. But we're not going to continue because I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. So, what did we learn today? We have a choice to make. A choice, a lifestyle choice. Do you want to eat whatever food is given to you? Or do you want to do temperance? Do you want to practice temperance? Are you willing to do whatever it takes, or do you want to do what God says to do? That's a question for you and for me. And on this moment, we have that choice to make. So, this was Daniel chapter 1, verses 8 to 10. I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye for now.